talking about how the music genre in Calypso had transitioned to what it is today. And
Yeah.
I was telling him, actually, my brother did send it to me because we were both, he was a little older than I, but he was a teenager and bad boy in those days, giving trouble. But he turned out all right at the end. But anyway, it was a shadow tune that was young people tune. And so I couldn't sing it, and I obviously couldn't talk it either because they were all laughing at me at how I was talking all the song. And I got this song, and it was I Come Out to Play. You all remember I Come Out to Play?
Yes, man. That's a classic.
Oh God, Richard, Richard, your agent made out when they say you don't know that song, That was a young
I
people
must
song,
apology. I really do not know that song.
I Come Out to Play, Don't
Yeah.
Hold Me Round My Belly. That was all the young people song.
Yeah.
That is a shadow song.
Came out with the
Karen,
best, man.
Karen,
But
no
he
hear
came
that
out with a
first.
different note. Huh?
1974.
Uh-huh. And
First.
you know who changed the thing? Ras
I was
Shorty
a
I, which you couldn't
baby.
spell
Come
right.
on. Come
Endless
on.
vibrations.
I was now only trying to walk.
Okay.
Yeah.
Stop.
Why do I
Okay.
remember some from then?
No, we don't know how the music transitioned. I mean, Calypso, that's why Sparrow and Kitchener got. They said that is not Calypso. No, it wasn't. It was soca, but that's why Ras Shorty I brought the change with Endless Vibrations.
Yes.
No.
And then you had Shadow with Bassman and I Come Out to Play.
I know Bassman. That was the same album.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but you see, Bassman was more along the same genre of more along the more traditional calypso. Although it was a threat to Sparrow and Kitchener, but I Come Out to Play an Endless Vibration, which is Raj Shorty, is the one who brought soca to carnival thing, and then it just evolved over time. You didn't know I knew all that, eh?
Bassman was. I don't want to sing that soca boat or something like that.
No, man.
After the Bassman in
Did
the hell,
import.
I come back. I went to plant
Okay.
peas in
Did
Tobago,
import.
but I sprayed.
Yeah.
I
I
can't
can't
eat
make the grade.
Yes.
Right,
Yeah, right, yeah, right. You see what
right,
melody
yeah,
could do and get rid of? Yeah. I know that one too.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Anyway,
I know
good
that.
afternoon to Richard. Good afternoon to Daddy Mac. Good afternoon
Yeah,
to
but Karen,
Ruben.
that thing
And
was
Good
stop. I
afternoon.
like the intro. Don't play your hustling us on, Karen. I saw you dancing to Bob Marley. That mean you know war. You could sing that one. Give us a
no,
line.
but listen, absolutely, I know my Jamaican. You remember, I was a student in those days, and
Yes,
at
yes.
UWI, and all
Mhm.
them, and or Jamaicans,
That
and
was Mona.
no, right here in Trinidad. The first year I
Oh,
spent here. Actually, my first husband was Jamaican. You all know that, eh? So
wow.
I am good with the
Oh, he was a
Jamaicans.
lucky fella. He was a
So he
lucky fella.
says. So he
Yes,
keeps
yes.
telling me.
Well, he was right. He was right. Yeah.
we both agree.
If you must say so yourself.
If I may say so myself. But I'm good with the
Yes,
family. The family is a
yes.
lovely, lovely family. But yeah, I have real Jamaican roots.
I see.
Yeah, so
Excellent. Indeed.
and
Oh,
my
well, we love Bob
son from
Marley.
that
We love
marriage is
Bob Marley.
half Jamaican. So
Yeah.
you can't come with me with any Caribbean thing.
Don't I realize that now, Karen? That
Mm.
is nice. That is wonderful indeed.
Yeah, one
Excellent.
sister married somebody from St. Kitts, another one to marry from St. Vincent. We love the Caribbean. We are
Oh,
Caribbean
yes.
people.
This is a Caribbean family.
That is
Caribbean.
it.
I have Dominican links. I have links from Tobago, some from Barbados, some from Trinidad, and
I
some
told
from
them real
Cincinnati.
direct, my brothers and sisters,
Mhm.
spouses, my brother married a Jamaican.
Oh, I see.
All
Wow.
right. All I called there was not second and third, I told about my brothers and sisters married to Kititian, Vincentian, Jamaican.
You ever visited 9 Miles in Jamaica?
What's 9 Miles? That's a Negro or something?
Well,
I
I
don't know
thought
9
you
Miles.
were a real
Look, I tried
Caribbean.
to always want to embarrass me. Try that last week with matching principle.
No, but that's where Bob Marley's from. His home. I went up there. They call it 9 Miles. We have a DJ here whose program. It's the name of it is 9 Miles.
Oh,
So
okay.
in the they have a big sign 9 Miles. Bob Marley. Big pictures of him heading
No,
in
but I
there.
went to his the museum they have in his honor, which is of course in in the capital, and I've also, as I
You
said,
should
I
go
used
up
to.
to where he came from.
I've been
What
to
they did up
Negril,
there.
Port Antonio. I've been to
Yeah.
all over Jamaica.
I went to his mom home where he
Okay,
was
stop
born.
boasting. Stop
No, no, no.
boasting.
Yeah. And they demolished it and built back a replication of it, if I may say so, because it got too
Yes.
old. And they put back
Yeah.
all the furniture in there. And then they have something up there from how he started to the big mega star he got. So they have a sequential tour to show you how
Right.
and where he sat
Right.
and where
These
he
are
laid
things
down,
we
where
should
he
have
wrote it
here.
to. Yeah, and where they have him buried too. He's buried right there.
I remember when I was teaching in Barbados, because I had, at that time there was only one faculty of law, which was just not long ago. It was just a few years ago, before each campus had its own full-fledged faculty. So the Jamaicans still had to come there to
Right,
Barbados to do their degree in law. And I
right.
remember them talking about intellectual property, and they're saying in Jamaica, the Bob Marley is part of Jamaica's intellectual property. Their chicken and their they actually want to have it registered, and their pies, their patties, Jamaican
Yeah,
patties. I
yeah.
mean, they actually
That
wanted
is a big
those
thing today.
things. Yes, and what I'm saying is why we don't do that with the steel pan. It just
Yeah, yeah.
disgusts me. I don't know if we start that conversation.
The Trinidadians, yeah, as time you start that, you get a gripe and your head start to hurt you.
I think
We are so
on that.
backward to some extent as a people when it comes to progressive advancement.
Okay, but I think that the reason for that, to be fair, but this is a different world we're living in, and we in Trinidad and the politicians and people in leadership are not doing their part to take us to the next step. In other words, there was a time when you talk about tourism, you were right to think about it as being a servitude, as being a thing that only the tourists from European countries and and American Canada would come, and that it was seen as a continuation. People had not had that disconnect between slavery and this new experience, which they felt was then going to another level of servitude. Not understanding, of course, it's a service industry. So, and in Trinidad, unlike the other islands that had no other alternative because they only had sun, and sea, we boasted on the fact that we had oil, and we actually looked down on the idea of having tourism because we felt, because I read up some articles on it just during this week. And, I was shocked to see the thinking, because I thought we'd gone so far ahead from that. But they said that is how Trinidadians felt. They felt superior, that they didn't have to rely on tourism. But tourism is not the tourism of yesteryear. Tourism has certainly evolved, and tourism is a lot about it, cultural the experiences. It's a far more sophisticated thing. And you go abroad, we are tourists when we go to the States, and it doesn't matter the person who's serving you, they serve you with respect and think you're paying the money. That's all they care about, is that dollar shining out. They put it out.
Yeah.
And I think that we in Trinidad have to embrace cultural tourism as the main driving force for earning foreign exchange reserves, supported by the other tourism, but the cultural tourism, and not just this festivals thing, but the whole thing that you just talk about Bob Marley. So we have a lot of opportunity, and I think we need to embrace it and see the opportunities that we have and not look at it as servitude. It's a service right now. It's a service. Yeah.
All right. We'll get back into the Caribbean thing. Nice little history. Nice, how I should say, peace on that. I enjoyed it. Thank you so much. And I try to show off and I talk about going up this 9 miles you tell me about when.
No, actually, I was on the TIDCO board for a long time ago.
Yeah.
And it's something I've always felt very strongly about, because I am very, very much a Caribbean person, as you can tell. I mean, I am a Caribbean person. My father wanted me to go off to England and do law. I said, no way. I had to beg him to let me stay in the Caribbean, and they wanted me to go away and study.
What the problem is where you decided to do it.
No, but he wanted me to go away, go to the big
country. I know, but you always wanted to do law, but you didn't have a problem with that, but it's where you wanted to study it.
Well, I would like to say that whatever I wanted to do, it didn't necessarily have to be low, but whatever I wanted to do, I wanted to be here.
Oh,
Very,
okay.
very, yeah, it was very, do you remember, anyway, you said you were wearing nappies then, but I was very much in the oil and sugar workers march when we had that whole coming together, the sense of community. People had a sense of purpose. Young people in my time, I could call names, which I will not call because some of them are in very highfalutin jobs. Because remember, I did law. And I will tell you that everybody was so into this ism, this schism, because you wanted to be part of the whole, what was going on in Africa, what was going on in United States, the Black Power movement, the Black Panther movement, the ANC, the fight where the guerrilla warfare, where that one-off in Africa, Ghana, which I've told you before, Cozy Harris, Telford Georges, that guy who changed his name because he said he didn't want to embarrass his family at the time. All these people from Tunapuna, they were the persons who went to Ghana. And Ghana was the first African country to become independent. And the leaders of that Pan-African movement and went to Ghana, framed their first constitution. It's Cozy Harris from Dominica. Telford Georges was their first Chief Justice. And that is a Trinidadian. I don't think people understand, and if you are from that era, it is a great sense of community among, and a sense of purpose beyond yourself that you felt, and which to a large extent we are losing, but it was a great time. And in fact, what they wanted to make sure that didn't happen, that guy who changed his name, he was from Tunapuna, but he said he didn't want to embarrass his family. I always forget his name, but he's one of the main architects who went to Ghana. That's why Ghana and Trinidad has such a close relationship, and yeah, that's why. And what they were doing was moving from Ghana, and what they were afraid of, the Europeans were afraid of, is what they had in the European Union. They were afraid of the Pan-African movement, that these people would suddenly get ideas that they could be independent, that they could rule themselves, and they could be successful. And the amount of riches and wealth they had, they could bond together and form a union. And that is what they were. Use the tribal differences between the Yoruba, the different things to create, and I really into those kind of things because in a way, see pattern here too. People have to understand, you mustn't just look at things on face value. There's some moving parts that you are not being made aware of that is against, and it's always about power and money, always rooted in power and money, always. They might call God a name, they might call all kind of name, but behind all of that is power and money, and that's what's happened with it. And that's what happened in Ghana. Correct. That's right.
George Padmore. Original name was Malcolm Nurse, not so?
Right. Thank you, George Padmore.
I'm not showing off funny.
And you know who else too? Not so much Ulrich Cross. I don't think he played that big a part, although the movie The Hero made it seem as though he played such a huge part, but it was really the George Padmore. These people were very young, but they were committed to the Pan-African movement, and no way was Europe going to allow that to happen. No way. And now they're trying again.
Right.
And you see, that is what the point I'm trying to make, which will come back, which will segue into a point that I have made before, but I feel committed to, and then also deal with other connected points, is that the low-income citizens in our country, part of their almost willingness to stay in that position is a lack of self-worth and self-esteem, and they do not believe in themselves. And my God, one thing you don't want them to see is success from that group. A success from that group that goes back to that group to help that group, because all of a sudden they will start to have self-confidence and say, hey, but I could be a successful businessman. I could rise a thing. But you must always make them believe that they don't have the ability to do that. And you know why I know that it has to be true? Because in the 60s and into the 70s, all the big firms, McEnany, Alston, Gordon Grant, and all these firms were owned by a certain section of this our society, but most of them have not. Their business acumen was not built on their business acumen, although I'm quite sure of them did have it. It had the fact that you inherited wealth, you inherited businesses, and so you never had to think so. But you gave the impression that you worked hard and you did all of this, and that's why you succeeded. And then we ourselves start to tell ourselves, well, look how they succeeded, and so we something wrong with us, and we doubt our own ability. And they want you to do that, because the day you get the idea in your mind, the day that something come in your mind to tell you that you could be that businessman, is the day that you will be free, and the day that you will be a great, great risk and danger and threat to those who are at the top.
Yeah, I agree.
You concur?
Yes, I told you I'm in agreement, Karen, full agreement. And I like that. No, I mean, come on. And the country is missing some of what you were sharing from what you experienced back then today. That's what's missing today. We need some of those things. And we are so far off the mark. It started by saying, politicians, they are not doing, in other words, what they should to help advance the people of the country today and to help move this thing forward. It's not just that they're not doing it, I think they have taken a conscious decision not to do it, but they are certainly capable of doing so. They want to feed the population something else. They want to continue to deceive the people, which to me is like undermining act of democracy. They're using their intelligence to brainwash and outsmart, and as they close their door and inside by themselves, they laugh, For example, one say he raised gas 3 times and he going to raise it a 4th time. He and nobody right yet. So it's a one-upness now. He did that and got away with it. The one in charge want to show I could do that to the whole country and more, and nobody would riot. You follow what I'm saying? Because what you are seeing that is rolling out in the country today is, this is a country with remarkable patience, remarkable patience, and I want to commend the people of Trinidad and Tobago for that. But you shouldn't abuse it. You shouldn't abuse it, and I think they have abused the people of this country for far too long now. You are sitting almost on $500 billion through your budgets over the years, and you have this country today looking like all people could really want. The majority of the poor people is to start to boil wild grass to make tea. And then you're threatening people subtly by telling them, look at the subsidy. That's a new approach, highlighting things to make you feel they did you a favor. So they're highlighting what they could do. It's a subtle threat. And then say we're not doing that, and that's a favor. So in other words, they're saying we could do this, but we ain't gonna do it. So behave yourself. Things could be worse. If you think it bad now, it could be worse. But they got a windfall of money so far from the war. Today I want to commend the trade union movement for putting out some very firm conditions. You heard about that, right? For not going back to the tripartite table or something like that.
They say they're not accepting the 4%.
They're not accepting. They're right. They're not just that. They shouldn't even respond to that. They should say that is insulting and just leave it so. But of course they had to do their thing. But they were called back in. Is it tripartite table they had?
Yeah, give me or you would ask it somebody. Yeah.
No, if that's the name of it, because they were called back.
Tripartite, the 3 parties, yeah.
Right, yeah.
Government,
and the way they were invited back to it was for them to say no. That's why I'm commending them. You know what you did to them, and then you come out now like you're a lord. Come back to the table after we embarrassed you, humiliated you all. You just come out and say, and I'm calling the trade union leaders back to the table. When you do that, that's enough to ensure that they don't come. But what you wanted was the public to say why they're not going back, although they talked to the prime minister calling all the back to the table. So what they did cleverly, because I said to them too from here, If they only go back just so, it's fire to them from me, you know. I mean, how much of a fire that may be, because what they would have done is highlighted that they really have no value whatsoever to just go. I say, so declare you're not going or come up with a serious reason. You had to explain it. You can't just say we ain't going, you would look foolish. And they came up with something I didn't even think of. You know what they told the Prime Minister and the government?
What?
They told them, well, we are prepared to come back to the table, you know. But you have to meet our conditions. Condition number one, I think they wanted was the refinery, which I like that. That made sense. So I know they're not going back because they ain't getting the refinery. That is good. The second one was they must stop getting rid of selling out state agencies and so on. All these things we're hearing about Wassa, Flour Mill, what happening with the ports and all these other types of things. The government must give a commitment that, and sort of like what happened with Petrotrain too. And until those things are done and met, they are not returning. So you know what that means? They ain't going back. Since then, the government gone silent. They didn't expect that. And look at what they have done. They kill the talk in the national community. Because had they not done something like that today, the talk would have still been, we listen to them for the Prime Minister call them back to the table and they ain't going, forget them. No, they said they're willing to come back, but satisfy those conditions first.
Why you say that the refinery is off the table? Why would you say that? It doesn't have to be the whole refinery. That can be just the
because whoever making all that money, Karen, from supplying, being the sole supplier of fuel to the country, and it's an unnamed person so far as I'm aware. They don't want to lose that, so they're like a monopoly now in supplying fuel to the country. You only open up that refinery, you have a competitor. So whatever money making from the day that refinery pumps start to work again, whatever your profit was going to be less thereafter. You don't want that. So we
not
were
only
told
that, the issue also too of breaking the backs of the union. That's one of the major things that they want to do is to, you know, to de-unionize, if that's the word you could use, Trinidad and Tobago. So that's.
But it would be accepted in America. For sure, America would use an American, how I should say, the way they speak, their lexicon or their expressions to de-unionize would work in America. I think it could work here too, Karen, because we are helping people from this platform. So yes, they will looking to de-unionize, thanks to Ms. Tesheira, Karen, the trade union leaders and the whole movement.
But you know, when you need what you need to do then, first to be really serving the national community. I find it very difficult that you don't have persons who will be able to advise you as to who is supplying us with the fuel. Because they are selling the fuel, they're making a profit still, because from what I read, I was reading the monetary policy report, I think, from Central Bank, and they were saying, as I had said already, that imports had increased by 20% since within a few months, since maybe February, the last monetary report. I do, they take it every few months. And they said of the increase, I think 85% of that increase was in imported fuels. And the price, I guess, so they're paying for imported fuels. And nevertheless, they export those fuels, some of those fuels, out of the Eastern Caribbean island, because they're making a profit, even though they're importing the fuel, selling it on the local market, but they're selling it out. Maybe somebody from Paris should come and talk, or someone there that wants to come and educate us. And if there's nothing that is so accountable and all the wonderful words and transparent, they'll come and let us understand how is it that Paris is making a profit, and who is supplying them with the fuel? Where's the fuel coming from?
Where's the fuel? We need to know, because that would help us determine whether or not the refinery would really restart.
Yes, and when you use the word refinery,
I'm just dealing with the refinery as a separate
but that's what I'm trying to tell you, Richard. You know, I remember Kevin, is it what he got?
Former Minister
of Energy, right? I remember
him.
Yes,
Kevin
and who I
Ramirez.
have a very good relationship, professional relationship with. I think he's doing law now too. Just a person who loves to learn. But he was explaining to
Well, I
me that
find him
when
to
they,
be a nice guy. I had to tell you that because he was lecturing to my wife in UWI. As a
he
really good
is,
man. And yeah, she was doing energy as well in her master's,
yeah,
one of the masters.
yeah,
And
yeah,
a couple of times I was in another section because I
yeah,
had to do some
very
part-time
nice,
in a different way. When I went across there,
very
he was
nice,
lecturer in that session, and we chatted a few times. Right before he became a minister.
very
So I was
nice,
surprised
very down
when
to
he got
earth.
yeah,
I mean,
very
you know,
down to earth. Yeah,
and I know you can't put your head on a block for anybody, but you know, he's the type of person that if I had to say somebody's honest, he struck me like that. But what I was saying was this, you know, one of our many conversations, particularly early in my days on coming
I was
on
struck that way about
television
it.
media.
I put my head on a block for anybody. I want to agree with you.
Yeah, okay. But that's
Yeah,
the way that he has struck me. But any
yeah,
event, what I was saying is that he made a point to me that when you talk about refinery, the refinery's been around from the 60s early, and there's a big part of that refinery that's old, that to restructure it, to change the piping, to whatever you're supposed to do today, it's not worth it. But there is a
no,
part
but
of the refinery.
I heard same Kevin on a show saying not too long ago, and I could tell you not more than 9 days ago, he was saying that the majority of the refineries. Listen, if
Yes,
I
but
get
this is what he's
forgive me,
saying.
he was saying the majority of the refinery has new parts.
Right, and this is what I'm saying.
Yeah, so he was saying, listen, you can actually run it, even if it's the
And wait, and this is not only can they run it, that company, the gas to liquid that blew up, what's the name of that? Right? You know,
Daddy Mac could tell us, Dad Mac was the name of the
what's
company.
the name of it? That they blew up, and but they're coming back on stream in December, so they say.
I can't remember the name offhand right now.
But you know what I'm talking
I
about,
remember,
right? It has a sort of
And number buildings done, they
name.
on fire.
But my point is this. My point is this, that they built it on what I think that the People's Partnership had built together with Mitsubishi to build a gas to liquid facility. And the other one that in Mr. Manning's day, and who was deceased, and who they went and took him to court, and they lost, right? And they had to pay his costs, and they had to pay him a set of money for money because he was not deemed to have been negligent in the way that they tried to show him to be. They also had the diesel to gas. In other words, what I am saying is on that same refinery grounds, or whatever you want to call it, there are new pieces of massive investments of equipment there that need to be, I don't know what is there's a technological challenge. That is what the issue is. It's a technological challenge. So when, in the time of Mr. Manning, when they were going to do that diesel, so that they were going to bring a diesel, decarbonized diesel, so they use it for the ships and for whatever, but also that you would be able to mix it with the heavy refined oil that Trinidad produces and gets from other countries to make it acceptable as an oil for the international market. So what I am saying is, do not say that refinery is over. The refinery, as we envisage it, I think that is over. But don't say that there's a large part of the refinery which can be salvaged, as they did with this Nikwan. When they said that Nikwan, they acquired it, call it scrap material, when it was not scrap, for $35 million. That's what it is, $35 million. And the government took a part investment in it to gas to liquid, right? The challenge with both gas to liquid, with the diesel on, with the People's Partnership, and with under Patrick Manning's administration, is there is some technical challenge. But if they can overcome that challenge, they have invested hundreds of millions of dollars in equipment that has not broken down, that is not capable of being restored and be made very profitable. And as you know, of all countries, Germany is burning coal. Now you can't get more carbon. You cannot get any fossil fuel that has more carbonized, or whatever is the correct terminology, than coal. They're burning coal. The reality has hit them. So
Right.
I was also reading that the real players in today's market is the liquefied natural gas and the diesel. And they do not expect that to change in the short to medium term because they do not want Russia to ever have an opportunity through pipeline, natural gas or oil pipeline to them to hold Europe at ransom again, which is what Russia has been able to do because of the dependence on pipeline natural gas. So LNG, but I understand
those
to
European
build
countries, yeah.
Yeah, and an LNG platform is not a tomorrow morning you build it. It takes years to build it, and you need especially fitted ships for it. So Trinidad and Tobago, and they're saying they do not expect. I was reading from one of the top, they do not expect that trend to continue, at least for LNG, way into about, I don't want to get the wrong year, but I'm sure it's either 2026 or 2028. We already have the train 1, 2, and 3. We already have a lot of investment in gas to liquid on the refinery grounds. So do not say that it's not a good investment. That's my point.
When you say not a good investment, to restart the refinery.
Not in this way not in the old traditional way, but that is on the refinery grounds. It's not off anywhere. It's on the refinery.
I am saying restart it. That's my argument. Okay. Restart the refinery. What I am saying is that it wouldn't happen. That's what I believe, because that is going to run in a competitive way to whoever supplying us right now. You understand that? And
I understood your point,
And because the one who's supplying us now to remain as a monopoly, they're not going to restart it. So what they're going to get is lip service. They're going to
continue. They do a lot of that.
Yes, you got a lot of that, making you feel we're doing something, we're trying to get. But every month goes by, who making all the money? Who making all the money, Karen? Every month, somebody racking up $600 million in fuel alone for the country.
But Richard, as you're saying that this lip service, this is what the Americans and they did an interview with the person from the U.S. Embassy who deals with human trafficking, and the point the person made is that it's obvious, based on what the embassy official said, that they deliberately made it public and put it in the papers because they wanted to put pressure on the government, because it seemed as though if they said since they passed the legislation on human trafficking, there has been not one conviction under the legislation. And the embassy gentleman has said there's no question that it is the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, there is official corruption in this, and that there has been no movement dealing with human trafficking in this country. And I think he was indicating that if there's no movement, he played the lip service, the government, he said, but if there's no movement, we are in trouble of being downgraded as being a high risk for, I guess there are different tiers. We're already in a bad tier, but they will downgrade us further. And you know what the gentleman said? This is why I said that. He said, no implementation. He said the government talks to talk. We didn't put it as how I'm putting it, but he did say there's no implementation. Yes, he didn't say that because he's a diplomat. But he said there has been no implemented. While they have, so what is it? They talk, we talk, and that is this government with every single thing. I have never seen a government. Oh God. What they did with the one with the COVID-19 that they gave to Anthony Watkins, who I like, but what they did with that? What they did with Jody Jones thing on the children's thing? What they did with that?
Nothing. They talk everybody to sleep and then change the issue.
And you know what they say? You know what they say about politicians? You know, and these people send you out these things. They say when you want to stop something, just start a committee.
Yeah,
Just
no, no.
appoint
Well,
a
we call them
committee.
out on that already. They started a lot of committees that never delivered anything. And
But they
so
start a
there's a committee
committee.
for that, there's a committee for this, there's a committee for that, there's a
After
committee
you,
of so, committee down, so committee across, so, but nothing coming out of any
but guess
committee.
what?
Come on,
You
you fed
start to
up with
get
that
dizzy.
whole talk
You start
committee
to get
nonsense.
dizzy.
Yeah.
Richard, you
And
start to
imagine
get
they
dizzy. You
came up
forget the
the other day.
committees.
You remember people were talking the other day about the amount of forex we putting out for food importation?
Yeah.
They come out and say, well, we set up a committee to look into the agri.
That's true.
They did. Up to now, we don't know
As if
what.
that is something they now found out.
Yeah, they just discovered if we put a committee up, they may be able to come up with something. What about the committee that was supposed to lead the country out after COVID? The path back to
Yes, I'm
economic
talking
growth.
about, yes.
What happened to that committee? What happened to the committee that was advising the Prime Minister, the economic committee that had people like, we call him the brightest guy in this country now. What's his name again? Mr. Farrell. He had acts on it, David Abdullah and several others. And they just walked away. They just walked away because they said the government, same thing you said, not implementing anything.
But you know what?
They're not taking
National,
advice.
and you know what they don't want to implement? The National Statistical Institute, because you cannot manage what you cannot measure. And that goes, I spent a good little time looking at unemployment and what constitutes unemployment. So we know, I don't know, but coming back to the matters that we had discussed earlier, I don't know if you want to segue to that, but I will say this is what I feel. I hope that when we have these conversations, then one of the things that I want people to, from my point of view anyhow, is that when you tell me about a subsidy, there may very well have been understanding at a time when the country had very high unemployment. I saw some figures like 22% in the 70s and so on. And there was also the time with the 99, with the NAR, when they cut subsidies so closely that it caused, unrest in the country. So one has to know that subsidies does have a purpose of giving support for people in times of need. But I am very confident that this government uses the subsidies as a means. I've said it a million times, and I will say it because I want them to hear me. I want you to hear me, who I'm speaking to, that they are using the subsidies to make sure that you stay right where you are, to be a cheap source of labor, so that and also for political purposes, when we need a crowd for this place, a crowd for that place, and when you cannot survive on that salary, that you will get involved in the informal sector. And so that they will have a constant stream of recruitment, because the subsidy is not going to take you out of it, but you are not taking me out of it. And a simple thing I saw, which I was very impressed with, but it seems like it was a private sector initiative. At the agro industry, they had a down at in South at one of the malls, the big mall there. They had an expo
in South, that's Gulf City.
Yeah, it's Gulf City, and they had all these booths dealing with the agro industry. Why can't the government, instead of a hands down, give a hands up? Why can't they turn these people into entrepreneurs? Stop giving them money. Why in the money that you're using and you let them start one set growing food and you give them the food. The other set creating the product, the agro industry. And the third set will be the ones who are doing the marketing and setting up booths and good booths and teaching them how to market their product, how to package their product. You can create a whole agro industry and those linkages between all three. Why don't you do that? I can't understand why you're not doing that. I don't understand. And there are a lot of young men on the street that not all of them, listen, there are some who buy and you can't save them, but that is true in any situation. But there are a lot of them that if you give them the proper tools and a proper structure and implement that, and then you see it going to actually producing whether it's chocolates or chutneys, then labeling and marketing the products, and then creating the cards. Why don't you do that? Why don't you start up a steel pan a few steel pan, factories, and then have these guys trained in the plain thing to be able to go on Yahoo and earn money by doing lessons. Why can't you do that? Why can't you invest in the people? I cannot understand that you will get around the whole issue that people saying just subsidy. Take them out of it. Let them become independent. I cannot understand it. And there's only one reason, is you want them to say right there. You want them to say right there.
Huh? So that the government will have control over them. Whenever
and not only that, yes.
So you are proud, promise them something for this moment and make them feel, and because everybody desperate, they come out. You have a big crowd. You have a big crowd, and that's what they're playing too. So they condition people mentally to accept very little or nothing as something. And I mean, come on.
But you know what it is? You know what it is, Richard?
The most, go on, cruel.
So Richard, what is it? What I'm trying to say is they are afraid. They are afraid that they will be successful. And when they become successful, they start to get big ideas about themselves and stop thinking that they can't be entrepreneurs, because they're already selling their mind. They are the consumers. They are not the entrepreneurs. Yeah. And then they start thinking that they can do better. They can get out of it. And they lose that mental control. And they become independent of that.
Exactly so.
But that is what I'm telling you. And I hope they are listening to us. Because I have neither Richard nor I have any reason.
When you are not here, I try to peddle it. That is what they are doing to the small man. They want to hold on to the small man. They want to give the small man lip service only. Keep on dangling a carrot before him and make him feel the day they're hoping for is round the corner. Come in, use them, get them outside in huge numbers. Can you elaborate some on that point? Not how would the government control them with the subsidy and having them perform proud?
Okay, so two things. When I was looking at the definition of unemployment, what I was about to say, I went to CSO. I looked up a number of places, the meaning of employment, because these people are underemployed, but they are deemed to be employed. So when the CSO puts as the statistic 4% employment, when there was a time where unemployment in this country was 14-15%, and this country economy has not recovered, and you have a low unemployment rate, it's because those unemployment rates include URP and CPEP workers. And it also includes people who are not making a living wage. This is why National Statistical Institute needs to give a proper definition, because what they say is a person is deemed to be unemployed when they are looking for jobs and wanting to work and able to find a job. Okay. So what I am saying is, but they are not adding into that equation the number of people who are not working for a living wage, and those URP and CPEP who could never be living on a living wage. So what I am saying to you, the unemployment National Statistical Institute needs to come on board, and we need to distinguish when we talk about employment. We have to decide, is that person employed when they're only getting 2 days work a week? Is that, yes, he has a job, but what he doing getting $200 a day? He can't mind himself. So what it does is two things. Those that are in URP and CPEP fighting for the 10 days and fighting for 10 days. I mean, I was an MP. I would say I never was part of that, and that's probably why I wasn't as popular as I could have been, because nobody could ever say, none of them can, because there's nothing they can say about me, although they would like to, but they cannot, ever involved in any form of wrongdoing or involve myself in any gang. It is not to say that they didn't come to my office and I pretended, like they pretended, that I didn't know why they were here, and I pretended I didn't know why they were there too. But under no circumstances were they going to get me involved in their activity, because not at all, I wouldn't. But what they do is these are people who have gone to jail, some serious people. But what they do, so I was an MP. I was an MP for Kappa. Our Karapo was part of my constituency, Karapo was part of my constituency, and Samru village, right? So please, there we go.
Let's
So
start
what
the
I'm
law
saying
that's
is,
able to make it out of that situation in one
well,
piece time.
exactly. And listen, nobody. So this thing about giving you a URP and the counselors giving you a URP if you come in and march or don't march and they're not supporting you, like
Social
how they didn't.
programs cannot constitute
But
for
they
the
are.
persons who do them employment. You
But they
know they are
are
not.
counted.
No. They will do that to keep the numbers down. That's why they will do it, to say
No,
unemployment is down.
the whatever the UF, whatever international body, a senior person, professor told me when I raised it, and I accept his good because he's one of the top economists in his country. He said to me, Karen, the UNESCO, I don't know who it's the body, ILO, I don't know who it was, said that the social work, that social type work does count for employment. Because I couldn't understand. I said, why is unemployment rate so low? Because it shouldn't be so low. He said, well, URP and all those
Makeshift programs.
yeah, right, but those are social programs. But what I'm saying, it is not, this is what I want to say. I don't think it's so much to get the crowd, because we live in a virtual world now, and more people are not coming out in crowds because of COVID and then monkeypox. So I don't think, in my view, as a former politician and MP and sitting on the inside, I don't think that the reason for the continuation of the subsidies is so much for that type of political patronage, because I don't know how many numbers you're talking about. I think it is ensure that those at the top tiers have a cheap source of labor and people to work in their informal sector. I am confident about that. I'm confident that is the main reason. I am confident that yes, but because people now going and listening to virtual meetings, attending virtual meetings and so on, and that's becoming more the norm. So I think, yes, it's control, but the control over, yes, up to a point, but it's also to keep you in a position of need so that you will be very vulnerable and very susceptible to being part of the informal sector. Right? That is what I will say on that. And, Richard, when I was looking at this whole idea, I think someday you should have Stephen Alvarez on your show. Mm-hmm. I was on another show with him, and he was an oracle for me. He didn't set out to be an oracle to me, but he ended up being that.
He turned out to be one.
Yes. Yeah, but you're not looking like if you two. Well, he has a understated way. Mm-hmm. But what he said was very...
political leader of a party, right?
Yeah, but if that party haven't nowhere to go, so we know that. So I won't, it's like, so, you have to be able to distinguish with, it still can bring value.
Sure. Yeah, agreed.
Who are we speaking to?
No, I'm talking to you. It's just that I have other systems running simultaneously. Yeah.
You know what he said? I'll tell you what it is that the point I was making. And I thought it was a very good point he made. You know, of course, the demographics of Trinidad.
Yeah.
And I don't know. He actually said in 1952, what would have been the colonial government passed an act called the Sugar Industry Labor Welfare Committee Incorporation Act. But under that act, they established a fund called the Sugar Industry Special Funds Act. This is legislation, which is the point he made. They legislated, and the only beneficiaries of that fund were cane farmers and sugar workers. And do you know what the benefit was? Loans, building loans, housing loans, loans to buy houses at subsidized rates, and granting, I think, freehold estates until I think in 1986 they stopped them. They could do 39 years 30 years, 199 years. The point I'm making is this. And when I went up on that site, because now they eventually made them part of the HDC, I found out they have been responsible. Only sugar workers. You hear what I said? Only sugar and cane workers. Nobody else. Nobody else. You have to be a cane farmer or a sugar worker. You got me straight? Only they can benefit. And they were able to establish by way of houses settlement. I'm not talking about when they closed down Carney Limited. I'm talking about this is from 1952. They were able since then to develop 24 housing settlements. That is on the website. And 20,000 three-bedroom homes within the sugar belt. Now, what is my point? He did make a good point. I will never take another person's point and state his mind. He said, when you have equity in a house, because you are a sugar worker, you could go to the bank.
Yeah.
And you say, listen, I have a deed here. This property now valued $100,000. I'm using his example. I want to open up a tire shop for $20,000. You get any loan, right? But when you look at the HCC houses, most of them are rental in thing. Where you going to the bank with? Is there any special? And the HCC houses could be built in town, in south, and in central. There's no thing once there's no qualifier. But for this, you have to be a sugar worker or a cane worker since 1952. So
they got a very good deal.
And what I'm trying to tell you is that sometimes when we say how it is that these people, they were able to rise up so fast, they could rise up so fast because since 1952, when we were still under a colonial government, they could go to Barclays or go to a bank and they go with their deed and they could get a loan. And they could get a loan to start a business because that is how they have the equity in their house. But if you weren't a sugar worker or cane worker since 1952, they started. I told you they have up to now 24 housing settlements and 20,000 three-bedroom houses have been established for cane workers only. So it's not only that they own the property, but they can use the property as collateral for a loan to get into a business. When you are this HCC renting, where are you going to the bank with? Right? Which bank you going to with that? Right? And the HCC makes no distinction that you have to be I don't know what you have to be URP or CPEP to get the loan. You can get the loan. Their houses built in central, their houses built in the east, their houses built in the west, all over. But if you want to get a loan to build them out, those houses, you've got to be a sugar worker.
Yeah.
And then you could go, go to the bank.
HCC house to get some money on it by using the equity of it. And if you want to use the HCC house to use the equity of it to get a loan to start a business or something, you can't, because most of the HCC houses, you won't get a deed. And because you don't have that deed, you can't even begin the transaction because the bank would want the deed to allow them to hold the property as security. So while you get the house, all you can do is live in it. That's
what I'm also trying to say is that when people talk about URP and CPEP and its subsidy, this was a subsidy only for certain group of people in this country.
But it's different for CPEP and URP. They haven't gotten that type of benefit.
But they have not this was legislation that was passed to give them that right. This is legislation that said sugarcane.
Was that positive discrimination in law?
But this is what I'm trying to say. I'm not talking about it being discrimination so much, What I'm trying to say, this is the point I'm really trying to make, because it bedevils people why a certain group of people are not so much in business. And then you see, well, maybe some people got their hands up. And it is by listening to CR. And I went and looked it up because I didn't believe him. I didn't believe him. I said, no, you're not talking truth, because he's insisting it was legislated. They passed law to ensure that they got that subsidized thing. So I went and looked it up and he was right. And so what I'm saying is, you gave a certain group in this society a hands up not just only protection, Richard.
No,
I'm trying
no
to say,
protection. Hold on, I'm helping you with your point.
okay.
They were given protection by the law to do
But I don't want to use the word
exactly
protection.
what you are speaking about.
But why you say protection?
Well, let's look at it this way. Because they were protected from other people who were not in that industry. They were blocked.
Yeah.
You understand that? They couldn't get in. So because you are making the point that you had to be a cane farmer or what?
A sugar worker. That's what it said, cane farmer
to benefit from that program. And they legislated that. This is what you're saying.
Yes, I looked it up.
There's protection to those who were inside. Because if you wanted to get involved and you weren't a cane farmer, the law is against you. They say, well, no.
Okay, all right. Okay, but Richard, this is the point I am trying to make, though. This is what I'm trying to make.
You're trying to make.
What am I trying to make?
The point you're trying to make is that some people got more than just a start. They got a hand up because they were thrust into business at the hands of the government based on how they design what they design.
By the legislation. And so that when some people go and want to say, those people have no ambition, and we have more ambition, and we started our business, they forget to say that the government since 1952 gave them subsidized to allow them to have housing so they could go to the bank and take out a loan to start a business. So put that into the mix when you are making your demand. That was something I learned that I did not know before, and it was an eye-opener for me.
And would you call that a fair or unfair advantage that group got?
Well, of course it's unfair. Well, unfair to those who didn't get it.
So when people want to make that claim, they should also add in that they benefited from an unfair advantage that the state gave them. And that's why I was asking.
No, this is under the colonial government, huh?
I know. Yeah. We say this was 1952, yeah?
Yeah, and then it continued with amendments and so on.
Yeah. But I was asking if it was done because of positive discrimination. Is it that they felt, the colonial government, that this group needed that type of support and they were picked out for it?
Well, no, it was, I would say I rather put it this way. Because of the people who were working on the sugar plantations and working in the sugar industry were the indentured laborers, because after slavery, they didn't want to see, and they didn't want to be associated with the land, or they had to have land, it would just be their little thing. They had PTSD, whatever they call it, post-traumatic syndrome. There was no word known like that at the time, but clearly people were suffering from that. Whereas the owners of these plantations, the British colonials, who still wanted our sugar, wanted to make sure that the person who worked in the industry stayed in the industry, so they wanted to give them a sweetener. So it was more a sweetener to those who worked in the sugar industry. And because of the history and demographics of Trinidad, those who worked in the sugar industry, by and large, were the indentured laborers. So I would not put it this way. I would not say they wanted to give a group of people a hands up. Whoever was there, whatever group was there and was doing the work, they may have given them the same advantage. It just so happened that that was a group that was there. My problem with that is that the other group are always pounding down on their own self and always being told, even by the people who make it, that, they either they're lazy or why they couldn't start a business or why they didn't this. And, we always been so negative and self-blaming. And I am not saying you can't think, but this had to be a critical part of the reason why they were able to go into business in the way that they were able to go into business, because they were given the facility to have equity and have collateral, which as a person of color, whether Indian or Black, you couldn't go into Barclays without that. You had to be mad. You had to be mad to think you could go in there without equity. So they had that collateral, which was legislated by the colonial government. So when you want to tell me that we are natural business people, we are naturally business people, you have to be careful about making that statement as to the reasons why that was allowed to flourish in the way it did. It cannot be the whole story, but heck, it's a big part of that story. And I'm just telling that part, and I'm just telling that story for those who there sitting down there beating up on themselves and hating on themselves, to tell this government, don't give us subsidies. We want a hands up, not a hands out. And we're tired of plans. We're tired of plans. Implement. You want to implement? I see them doing the vertical farming. Set up some vertical farm. You must be able to do something. Stop having commissions of inquiries upon commissions of inquiries upon paying all these people. How much money you're paying out to people to do a to give you a what you call it? Always asking people to give them a consultant, to give them something. How much millions? You know, the CL financial thing, which is what, of course, I wanted to mention. You know, the Prime Minister said in 2016 that it was $78 million that was spent on that commission of inquiry. 70. Yeah. You know how many people you could have helped with that $78 million?
Yeah.
And that was $78 million in 2011.
How many people that $78 million was divided up to share out to? How many?
No, it was not. It was not the PNM government. That was the People's Partnership.
5 persons, 7 persons, 9 persons. That's to tell you how they were dishing out money and wasting people's time. But let's go on over to CL Financials. Yeah, let's move on over to that. What you wanted to raise with that?
Yes, I wanted to raise that issue because, and I would appreciate your input on it.
Input. Yes.
Your input on it. In 2016, well, first of all, the commission started its work in 2011, completed its work in 2013, and finally handed in their report in June 2016. During that period of time, I, being the person who was the Minister of Finance under PNM government, under PNM administration, a PNM Minister of Finance, was the one who, on behalf of the PNM government, signed the MOU and was involved in the initial period. And in fact, the commissioner said that he was ending his period of the commission of inquiry in 2009 when the shareholders agreement was signed. So in 2009, the PNM was in office.
Right.
All right. So I have always been anxious to have my name cleared, because it's a very difficult thing to have speculation about what I did and what I didn't do, and having people as Raymond, what's his name again? Raymond, what's his name?
Raymond.
No, not Raymond. Raymond is the name of the
Raymond. Raymond.
Yeah, I can't remember. Right, after Raymond, going on an international platform and giving implication that I went in a closed door meeting with the governor, and having people speculating that I did something wrong. All right. Mm-hmm. So I have always been very anxious about getting that report out. So in 2016, unfortunately, I was scheduled to appear on I-95 on a Sunday show to talk about the report, because I knew that the Prime Minister was not going to release it. And I knew he wasn't going to release it because the names that would have been called, remember, I was in the middle of it all, would have been people who were in the PNM, who were financiers of the PNM. And I know he did not want, and I felt also even the UNC did not want to do it. And their plan was to get at me, and it failed in the commission inquiry. Whatever they thought they were going to get, it did not succeed. So everybody lost interest, and no one have interest. So I went on for that specific purpose. But Mr. Manning had died just before that. But I did have the opportunity to say to the listening public, I said, I will bet my last dollar that the Prime Minister is going to express outrage and indignation, as he has, about the report and the egregious conduct of these people. And he's going to make a lot of noise. And after he makes a lot of noise, he's going to put up on a shelf, tell the people whose names he knows, the ones who got salmon letters, at least there were persons who got salmon letters. He mentioned that. A salmon letter is, they're going to say something bad about you, so they're going to give you a chance to answer. And so we knew 6 names of the people who got letters. And keep quiet, it will pass over, because nobody wants that report today. Now, that, of course, I was waiting for that report to be released because I wanted to be able to speak out. So the reason I want us to talk about that is that by happenstance, or what they call serendipity, I was told by someone who read the report absolutely without. And so I hope the PNM doesn't go off on who leaked the report. Nobody leaked the report, and don't go off on the deflection. Let's deal with the fact that the person told me in no uncertain term what I had always known, that nothing bad was said about me, that I was in fact that it was a contagion thing, and I did what I had to do, and there was no negative thing about me. You know why am I bringing that up? You know why I'm bringing that up? Because the Prime Minister, a PNM Prime Minister, of which I am a member of the PNM, stood up in a PNM in the Speaker of the House and gave all he talk, and then he said, and I want to place it on the record because I read his speech. You could go and read his speech after. I want to place it on the record that my Attorney General, Faisal Rawi, there was absolutely no mention of any wrongdoing on his part. Even though, and in fact, he was not even called as a witness, although he served for a brief period on the CLICO Investment Board. Now, what I find very noteworthy about that.
That was Al-Wari.
Faisal Rawi.
Right.
In 2009, which was the remit from 2008, 2009, which is remit of the Commission of Inquiry, Mal Rawi was not a member of Parliament. He was, no, I don't mean any offense against him. Not a member of Parliament, not a minister, not a cabinet minister. He was nothing. But I was a PNM Minister of Finance. I was MOU, and you said nothing about me. So you left it for people to conclude the reason why he could clear Faisal Rawi, who was nowhere around at that time, and wanted read into the records of the Parliament. You wanted his name cleared, but you didn't see fit to clearly name of a PNM minister. PNM, I am PNM Minister of Finance. You could not find it fit to clear my name. So I came today, now that I know it for sure. You don't have to read the whole report, right, Richard?
No. Just
what
give
can
it
he
the
do?
part that involves you.
What's the report? What can he do?
Well, what I think he could do, since he has cleared Al-Wari, I think he should now come. What I think he should do, he should come. He should go back to Parliament. Because what he has done by clearing Al-Wari alone is to create a perception that he couldn't clear you. Because that's one thing, he couldn't clear you.
Could not.
And the reason he couldn't clear you is because there's something in there that if he raises it, it will make you look bad. So,
PNM look bad. The PNM look bad.
Yeah, the PNM will look bad. So I'm not raising you. I clear Al-Wari. But by leaving it like that, it creates another opening for people's imagination to go all over the place and think all types of adverse stuff about you. And that's unfair. I want to call on the Prime Minister, if that is the case, on the basis of fairness. Don't tell us if Mr. Tesheira is clean or not clean. Just tell us what the report said. That's all. I think there's a fair.
About the Minister of Finance.
About the Minister of Finance. Just tell us what the report said about the Minister of Finance. That's all. That's all. I am certain you would not request of him to clear your name. Just say what it said. And what it says will either clear your name or further attempt to sully your name. But whatever it is, I am saying if it was me, if I were in that position, I would say, Chief, just tell the nation what the report said about me when I was in that position. Could you do that? That's all. Don't do me any favors. And I'm asking if I could on your behalf. Don't do Mr. Tesheira any favors. And do justice to the people of Trinidad and Tobago. Some of them who have already come up with their own conclusions based on the act that was done in Parliament, where you omitted to call her name and in so doing setting the record straight as it related to her. Just go and do what you should have done now. And I think that would be sufficient. You should have, since you cleared Al-Wari, you didn't have to clear Mr. Tesheira. You could have just said what the report said about her at the same time. Since you failed to do that, could you kindly go back to the Parliament PM and say, it was my error. I should have done this then, but it's better late than never. So today I want to set the record straight. This is what the report had to say about the then Minister of Finance. And
by PNM Minister?
Yeah, and read it out. Not to do that. If you cannot do that, now people's imagination should turn around and start to wonder and ask, why
Well, he
don't
mightn't
you
do it. He
say
wouldn't do it.
it? But this is why we need to turn it around. Why won't you say what the report said about the
Yeah, but
then
I'm
PNM
asking you to do it.
minister? Well, I'm doing it. Why?
Yeah.
Why won't you do it? And by not doing it, if you choose not to, people in the country now should look at you.
But that's what he wants.
No, they should not you. Dr. Rowley, they should
No,
look
no,
at you.
no. They would say no. They would say he doesn't have to do it, and he wants them to say, I want him
He has
to say
do
what
it.
the
He has
report
to
said
do it.
about me.
No, hear what? He didn't have to do it if he didn't do it for Faris. Because
Yeah.
then you could say, hey, it had PNM people involved here, and I'm not mentioning anything about any PNM because they will think I'm being
Exactly.
biased. You understand what I'm saying? But since you could single one out, and by doing so, today people believe he's clean, and I believe he clean too.
Yeah.
But by leaving one in,
and one was directly
the high profile one, you failed to highlight the high profile one. People weren't interested in if Al-Wari, they didn't even know he was involved. But the one we all knew that was involved would have been you.
Exactly.
At the same time, this is what, in relation to Faris Al-Wari, who's now my Attorney General, he was cleared. You did that, fine. As it relates to the former PNM Minister of Finance, here's what the report say. And you read it out, he could read. He's quite eloquent. He's a bright guy. You could have said that, and just put it out there.
Okay, but and I want to just say two things. One, the reason now that I'm now bringing it up is because only very recently I got confirmation by someone who actually read the report. Because before I didn't want to do that until I knew. So I have confirmation. And secondly, I am sure the Prime Minister, and I think he was absolutely right, to take great exception when under the cover of parliamentary privilege, there were questions about his birth. He was absolutely right, but the person did it under the cover of parliamentary privilege, right? And you went and with all vigor and passion, you defended your name and your mother's name. Why do you feel my name has no value? Why do you feel my name? And you know what? And then you want to say, and you know what is the hard thing? You know what's the hard thing? It is the people's partnership who set it up and thinking they were going to get a PN, and you want to say that there's this all of us is PNM. If you cared 1 ounce about me as a member, and that is 6 years ago, so don't say it's now because I'm speaking out. Don't say it's now because I'm speaking out. Since 2016, you read that report and you know what that report said, and you chose not to say that the report had nothing negative, and in fact, this is what they had to say about me. But you know what? You wanted people, I have to conclude, because why are you mentioning Faris Al-Wari? All due respect to Faris, I have nothing against him. But why, if you're going to mention him, my goodness, I was the one in the hot seat. And one thing I know is you are politically astute. And you could not tell me, it'd be difficult for me to believe that you did it without knowing the effect it would have. And I am PNM. So if we are all PNM, the one China and one this and one that, if we are one PNM and they set up the commission against the PNM, clear your PNM, sister. Clear your PNM, sister.
He still has time to do that. But don't beg Sharon.
Okay, enough.
Sharon,
we've done. We've vexed. I say what we have to say. I get it out.
I think you clear your name. You clear your name. We have thousands of listeners and they would spread it all over the world.
Talking about thousands
and they know now why your name wasn't mentioned. Because I am thinking it could have been left out just to allow people to think whatever they choose to think about at that time.
And I am a PNM like him,
Yeah. Let me tell you, if I'm together in a situation like that, and it's two of us, and I hear them call up my colleague and they say he good, he clean, but I ain't hear Richard Noray, I could be like, hey, crazy. So what about me? Where leave to the people and say about me? Exactly. I would go fast to say, if you think I was dirty and my partner was clean, don't call none of us. You can't free him. Because if you free him, you bury me. So I would say, Chief, Yeah,
You
wait
know what
for
they're
that.
saying? You know what they're saying?
Yeah.
Nature abhors a vacuum. Nature
Yes,
abhors a vacuum. So when you leave that vacuum like that, everybody filling it up and it ain't good. It's full of
But
dust.
all nothing good. Nobody would say when
Nothing
he
good.
didn't call that
So
name
we
because
ask
you
the
were
Prime
clean.
Minister, with all respect,
Yeah.
as a member of the PNM and a PNM minister at the time, in the hot seat against the opposition administration, in the same way that you felt it fit to say. And he said this, you know, I want this put on the record. I went and read his speech. He actually made sure he said he wanted this on the record. So he's making no joke. Put this on the record. Right?
But
So I would like him to think about that. Huh?
The Women's League of our great party.
Oh, Women's League. Oh, my Lord.
They released a statement.
Yes.
Wait a minute. Did you hear the statement?
Well, they released a statement on me, but I didn't read it too well. But you mean the most recent one?
The most recent one where they were talking about Senator Arnold Roberts. What do you think about it?
Yes. Okay, so the lawyer and me will speak, and the lawyer and me will speak. Former colleague of the Prime Minister's wife will speak on the issue. And certainly, Anna Roberts is one of the most crass, coarse, and vulgar persons, in my respectful opinion, that one can think. But you don't shoot the messenger because you don't like the message. Although there may be times they have maybe exceptions in some cases. But in any event, all joking aside.
Huh? I'm a messenger here.
No, he was a messenger.
Never shoot the
We're not a messenger, because actually when I saw it, I said, well, they will let it die, because, you know, people say all kinds of things and they're not true. And by publicizing or responding to it, you're giving life to it and keeping it alive and making people who didn't even know about it before now become aware of it. And then, so you wonder why they would even have done that. So to answer your question, obviously you're looking at defamation, because obviously he did not even beat around the bush, which was the most amazing part of the whole thing. He called the name of the Prime Minister. He called the name of he left nothing to the imagination of what he was saying. You know, in law and in defamation, they talk about how you determine whether a statement is defamatory, and they say they sort of made it culturalized it, or made it localized it to our situation. In America, in England, it's called the man on the Clapham bus. In Trinidad, it's the man reading, they say, the Express newspaper, the Guardian. If he read that same thing or saw that same thing, what would a reasonable person conclude? He didn't leave anything to one's imagination. It was spelled out as clear as, clearly. So that was the first thing. How could he take that risk? Because to do that is, in my thing, clear case of defamation, because how I got it is it was forwarded to me, as it was forwarded over and over and over. So that was the first thing, that he would do something like that, knowing the consequences of it if it was proven to be untrue. I mean, you're talking about significant damages. You're talking about somebody's wife, and I know that Mrs. Rowley has never had any name that even could be possibly associated with any kind of conduct that was not admirable as a wife of anybody and a mother. I could say that absolutely. I worked with her. I went to law school with her. I was shocked that he would say something, because there's a person that would never, ever come to my mind that those things could be said of her, implied about her. So that was the other shocker, that he would do that. Then what really then got me, and this is the lawyer, you have to excuse me if I put on the lawyer hat. The lawyer hat in me had said, when the People's National Movement Women's League responded, first of all, they decided, therefore, to bring it out into the open. But at no point did they say that he lied. They said it was abhorrent, it was nasty, it was dirty, it was this, it was that. But I never saw a statement there that said that what he said And what he was his innuendo that, and quoted it was an absolute unmitigated lie. That struck me that they did not say that he lied. The second thing that has struck me, but then we have to wait on time and whether anything happened, to me, that is, if there's a case calling out for a pre-action protocol letter through your attorneys, is that case, which may very well be happening as we speak. Because not to respond to that, it comes like Prince Andrew, when he didn't want to redefend himself in a case brought against him. You know, when you're high profile, people start to insinuate certain things. So the fact that we did not hear, one, the People's National Movement did not say he lied. Two, that he was bold enough to call names and to make those kind of allegations, knowing the consequences of making it and the damages and compensation he would have to pay. And the silence up to now from the Prime Minister, as if it cannot blow away. You see, Richard, I have also been things said about me that were not true. I heard it from my sister. I heard it from 4 or 5 different sources. So it was so widespread that some people that I knew well actually believed it. But no one dared to put that in the papers, because if they had put that in the papers, thank you, Jesus, you have a lot of money for me. Right? Yeah. So there would be no question. And they never put it in the papers because they never came out and put it out publicly. It's only talking, people talking. So that is what has disturbed me about this whole thing. It is very, very disturbing. What is your take on it, Richard?
Going back to the Women's League of the People's National Movement, first of all, I want to commend them for always being, how I should say, early in their reaction to these things to defend our great organization, and I want to urge them to continue to do so. But I share the view as you too. I think although they went far and they reacted quite quickly, I don't think they had gone as far as one would have wanted them and expected them to go. I too felt that the first thing should have been stated, should have been that claim is false, it's not true, it has no basis, and then they could have moved on to what type of person Mrs. Rowley is and that kind of thing, and what they're trying to do to her name and so on and so on. True. It's just the first part me had a concern with. When you had to defend yourself, I had reason as the president of Eastern Credit Union, when people put wrong things about me, they tried to convey impression where there was a $4 million matter that preceded me becoming president. But they put my face and say Eastern spent $4 million for incorrect drawing. So people seeing that, waiting the whole thing, plus under my leadership. So I said, no, put out an ad and set the record straight immediately.
Yes,
let them know that. When I became a director, when that matter happened, and that it had nothing to do with me. And we did that. We put it in every single papers we have in the country. I said, put it on news too, but we couldn't pay to get the news. I said, it must no, because it is important, you know.
The truth shall set you free, Richard.
Straight. Yes. They said, no, we couldn't put it in the news. I said, even if we try to get a spot, it's about the truth, you know.
Don't worry, the paper, they can go back and rehab the internet, they can go back and read the story.
Yes. I let them put it on the social media and everything. So anybody who didn't see it is because they elected not to. You understand that? Yeah. So I'm saying that to say I was in that position. And that's why I had to do that. So I responded to it. And I was thinking that the Women's League, that always collectively singular, does a fantastic job. I think they did another...
Don't always say do a fantastic job. They bad talk me too, eh? So I know you wouldn't agree with them with that. Eh?
No, I mean,
you say they always do that. Eh?
No, I'm not talking about all the
right now.
content in what is said. I'm talking about how quickly they react. The speed, defenders.
Yes.
I love them for that. And
the children are here. You know the story, right?
I hope they'll never have anything to say about me. Let them know we are one. I continue to love you all. But I do believe they could have gone just a little further.
Richard, you're not being Richard, you're disappointing me. You know why you're disappointing me?
The should have been very clear. Because let me just conclude this point, and then you'd have your way, Karen. Mrs. Rowley, to me, this is a lady whose name has never come remotely close to any such matter. She has, as wife of the Prime Minister, she has lifted the bar in a particular way. No one could say she made any statement, anything.
No.
She stays out of the picture. She's decent. I mean, come on. She's such a wonderful person. Listen, that's a national role model. That lady is a national role model. So that, and I think the Women's League captured that point with the rest of what they had to say.
Look,
Richard.
Richard.
Yes.
Richard.
Oh, I think I'm going to get a clown.
You know what I find?
Yes.
You must have some ants on your ground next to you, because I never see anybody dancing around a pointers. Let us be straight. We both agree. You always want to meet it low. We both agree that, in fact, that Mrs. Rowley is a great asset to the Prime Minister. We both agree, both in her elegance, her self-effacing, that we no question about it. And so we both are on the, I have even said years ago.
When I was talking about that, you know, Karen, I'm talking to all listeners for them to know.
Well, I'm talking to them too.
Oh, I see. Yes.
Because I was in class with her.
Right.
And I worked for 5 years with her. I was invited to her wedding, and I'm saying there could be not one word that one could say. In fact, I always said that the greatest asset that the Prime Minister ever had was his wife. She would not pass anyone. She was very charming. There's no question. We're not dealing with that. I'm a lawyer. You have to excuse, I'm a lawyer, right? So because I am a lawyer, I am not going to go around this mulberry bush, like how they went with me around and around the mulberry bush, but they never said what I said wasn't true. So if you want to respond to something, and let us be direct about it. All the other ways he went about it in his usual vulgar and crude manner, right? The fact of the matter, there was no gainsaying what he was saying about the Honorable Prime Minister's wife, a person who has been held to be of impact. And I feel empathy. I feel deep empathy for her, because I know what it is like to have someone to be saying things about you, and it's not true, and you have made it a point to maintain a life of, let your husband be in the spotlight. You have be a good lawyer. People may not know this about her. She's a great pianist, is the word, if I got it right. She's a great artist. People don't know that about her. I know those things about her.
Pianist is correct. People say it wrong when they say pianist. That would I say, silly.
So why you have to say that then?
Not to distinguish it properly.
Okay.
Because I wonder why they say that. I mean, come on.
Well, I don't know why they say it.
And pronounce it properly.
But Richard, I am a lawyer. If you came to me and you brought that thing to me, I will say, what is the legal issue here? What's the cause of action? Defamation. And it also constitutes libel, because although it was done in not in a written form,
video form,
because it's video form, there are case law on that has been decided. And when it is libelous, you don't have to prove certain things that are restrictions with slander. Okay, so that's a little bit of lawyer in me. So one time I know we're dealing
libel
with
easier to prove than slander. Yeah,
exactly. It has all these limitations, right? So then a lot of case law that has come out that shows that will visual permanent representation, even though it is recorded on a video or whatever. Okay, so so this is the lawyer in me. Then when I read it, I say, listen, in other cases, they talk about innuendo. That you have to look at what would the reasonable person reading this thing. You don't even have to be the reasonable person. You have to be the unreasonable person. You have to be the person who just learned the ABC to know what that statement is saying. So it's clear it was defamatory. So then we go to the response. And all I am saying, I have nothing against women. They were very quick with me too. I didn't say anything.
Sometimes when you go too quickly, you may not capture everything too. Sometimes when
Richard,
they wanted to move so quickly, and perhaps as a move so quickly they may have missed out a critical part.
Richard,
Well,
you know,
another thing to consider, hold on.
Richard, you know something? You should be in the Trump. You should be going to Trump's
Oh no, they even
lieutenants,
alternative facts. I couldn't go there. How you can say that about me, Karen?
No, you know why? Because
Yeah.
you know why I can say that about you? Because you let me know how much law you know. You let me know you understand law. So if I am going to respond to that, the Women's League, I'm sure they have lawyers. The Camille Robinson Regis is among them.
She's
The
an
first
attorney
thing,
herself.
yes. The
And
first thing I'm going to say, because people don't want to read the whole thing, the first thing I was going to say after I say all the good things about her, which will be true, and all the nastiness that he did, which will be what he said, the first statement is that is a lie, it is untrue, and that it is a first thing I'm going to say is a falsehood. They never said that. That's all I am saying.
And that's what I was saying, Karen. That should have been the first thing. You know, you heard us say that.
Not could be, it should have been.
Yes, Karen, I didn't say.
If somebody's saying something, if somebody says you are a thief, if somebody says you are a thief, right? And I talk about how, yes, when I lend him a car, he take 2 days to bring it back for me. And when I went to visit him, how he didn't treat me well, that he's not a nice person. What is that saying? I said you are a thief. You answer the question. Are you not a thief? That's what you're answering. I don't want to know about. You could say all of that after that, but the first thing you have to say is answer the defamation.
Karen, hold on.
Richard. Daddy Mark.
Yes, I did.
Are you enjoying the interaction between us?
You guys have me smiling from ear to ear.
He tried, Daddy Mark. He tried to ease out, you know.
He don't want them to be vexed with
Daddy Mark. He don't want them to be vexed with him.
No, Daddy Mark will tell you.
Daddy Mark,
the same point.
He don't want them to. He caught between a rock and a hard place.
Daddy Mark, what doesn't say she's saying what she's saying. I didn't say what I said. Come on,
All right.
I said from the onset, Karen, the Women's League did a fantastic job as usual, but on this occasion, I'm certain that the market that they started not in the best way. There was one thing that should have gone first.
But it didn't go last or anywhere.
No, that's it. But it didn't go anywhere. It should have been the first thing on this matter. We want to make it abundantly clear that this is false.
Richard, you know you're not Richard. You know you always say I'm not stupid, right? So if you say,
come on,
right? So come on. If you say,
is the better finance minister we have ever had? Certainly.
Okay.
Certainly, the current finance minister could compare. Come on.
So Richard and Daddy Mark, listening, this is English. If somebody tell me the first thing they should have said is that, does it not stand to reason that at some point, second, third, or fourth, or last, they said it? Because if it says the first thing, it only follows that they were at some point in the statement they did say it. At no point in the statement they said it. So don't say the first thing they should have said. They never said it at all.
No, but you see, I was coming to that, Karen. What I like about you, you have a strategic way of preempting, you know. I was coming to that. So I was only at the beginning. You went all the way down. I didn't finish at the beginning. Karen, I remember I was at the beginning. You know the beginning. The beginning is at the beginning. The begin by the beginning.
Anyway, I find it very unfortunate. Huh?
Yeah, it is unfortunate. It is unfortunate.
You know, but I think the Prime Minister has to understand. I think that maybe Mrs. Rowley might not, you know, she's a very private person, so it may very well be that she said, listen, just leave it alone. I don't want it's going to go away. I don't want it, because if it means you getting in a pre-action protocol, that means you're going to court, that means witness statements, and then she probably doesn't. She's always lived a private life all through his 30 years as a thing that has been a consistent position at all times. So it may very, very well be that she may be the one, since it's against her that the blasphemy has been said. I think it is for her to determine whether we move forward. So I think that it may very well be that she does not want the matter prosecuted or persecuted further, I think that it's unfortunate that the statement from the people, the Women's League, who you are praising, but I hope you were not praising them when they were saying all kind of thing about me, because I know you wouldn't agree with that. But
no, what I told them, Karen, when
what you
they
told
did
them?
that,
What you told
I
them?
would share it with you. I said they need to re-express what they have said somewhat differently. That's what I told them. I said the way it was
You're a diplomat, you know.
I said the way it was expressed could capture things not in the way in which they ought to have been captured, and there's still an opportunity to set that part right. Daddy Michael, I said that here not once, several times. Come on, there.
Okay, all right. So from the lawyer's part in me, that's what concerned me, that he was bold enough to do that, the response from the thing, and yet to see what is going to come out of it. But so that's the only thing that I would say on it. But as far as I know, the Prime Minister's wife, she is the greatest asset that he has. She has been a person of impeccable character. She has maintained always, I mean, I don't know anyone that I have met, even in the early days, late days, when I would think that did not speak highly of her. Even though some people may not consider me a PNM, if she sees me, she comes up and says hello. My daughter told me once she was in the mall, but my daughter, you know, is very apolitical, and she was in Trinidad at the time, and she said, Mommy, guess who came and said hello to me? Mrs. Rowley. I said, Mommy, you know, I was so embarrassed because I didn't recognize at first. And then she said, well, tell your Mommy I said hello. So I have nothing but best to say about her. So I don't want your listeners or your viewers to misunderstand me. You heard what I've said about her. I've said only good things, and you know I am a straight shooter.
Karen, as far as I'm aware, there are only good things to be said about that decent and wonderful lady.
Yes.
You know, yeah. And I believe you. I want to believe the reason a pre-action protocol letter is not in the public domain today.
Yeah.
Could be because of her style. She probably feels this. I'm taking the high road, as I always did. I'm not to commence legal proceedings against the gentleman for this. It would only bring me down to that level, and I'm not doing that. You know,
and I think also too, she's a very private person, and if you're a very private person, this man is dealing with a very personal part of her life. So to her, with all the I am a PNM. I mean, not necessarily support the leadership as a leader, but you can be assured that for the Prime Minister's wife and in relation to Mrs. Rowley, I have all empathy. It is so unfortunate that someone of your caliber, and I mean, I have never in all the years of knowing Mrs. Rowley ever heard anyone say one negative thing about her. And I just told you, my daughter came home at lunchtime and said, guess who said hello to me? And it's me, she went up to her. So she's always so charming. She does not allow the difference I clearly have with her, the Prime Minister and myself, or in relation to leadership. She has never allowed that to affect how she interacts with when she does see me. I can't. So I just want to say that it's very unfortunate, and I think that that man, he you know what, he's just so nasty, so nasty. You know, I
was in a function with some members of the judiciary.
And he cannot sue me for saying he's nasty, because it's true.
Well, I guess, Karen, you'd have to define to you what is nasty.
In law, there's something called justification, which is the truth. And the onus is on you to prove that is the truth. I just have to show some of the things that he has said.
Well, that you would have there. But I was in a function with some members of the judiciary, and I met her there. Yeah, Karen, you remember I was all through Europe the other day, you know, kings and so on invited me, you know. Folks, I'm only joking. That's what you call hyperbole at its worst.
Not hyperbole. What did people say? Hyperbole.
Hyperbole.
No paradigm for you, you know. No paradigm for you.
No kings invited me anywhere. But yeah, I was in a function. No, not me. I was
not
in
you.
a
You were the person in the Queen's bedroom.
no, no, no,
Not
no.
you.
Jack Warner used to be invited into those sorts of settings, not me. Well, not yet, Karen. Sometime in the future. Holy, wait and see. You know, the tongue has power. Wait and see. Anyhow, but I was in a function with some members of the judiciary, and she was there,
Yeah.
and we chatted briefly. And
Yes.
again, she was so consistent with her
Yeah.
decency.
True. It's very true.
She's out of the politics,
Very true.
and she has completely allowed Dr. Rowley to
It's true.
be Dr. Rowley. She
True.
was never tied to anything. She never tried to
True.
correct or explain what he
It's
meant.
true.
She has left him to paddle his own canoe and has stayed away from everything. To me, it couldn't
it's
ask
true.
for better support than that.
And she's easy on the eye.
Very easy on the eye. I have to say, PM has
Very easy on the eye.
fantastic taste. Fantastic.
Yeah. So you see, we you know what we're doing? You know what we're doing here, Richard?
I think he got
Richard, you know what we're doing?
On her taste.
You know what we're doing? We're doing a better job than the Women's League. That's what we're doing. Because when I give personal testimony, you give personal testimony. I gave personal testimony from a thing. My daughter, meeting her, soft-spoken, has been consistent. And I've always said, when we were in opposition, I said the best asset that Dr. Rowley has is his wife, Sharon Rowley. And that's
Karen,
to me, it's 6 o'clock now.
I would like to urge her not to commence legal proceedings.
Yeah.
Because what would happen?
Leave it alone.
It would be in the news, all this kind of thing, and her name would be all over the place. And I would say her to be as she is. Just leave it.
People won't believe it either.
Allow it to. No, she's way too wonderful, clean, and her track record speaks for itself. There's a hard thing for people to accept, so just leave that.
Yeah, that is what it is. Yeah, it's true.
That's it. Karen,
so we end of the day. I think you and I
have two sad things today, Karen.
What is
one? The show has come to an end. That's one. It's sad whenever the show comes to an end, where it saddens me. And the second one is today. It's not Tuesday, it's Monday, so it means my week before it's longer. So I have to go and set the clock again, Karen. And
that man can try to fool me, but I want to say
it reminds me how long again before I see Karen.
I want to say though, before I go, that the PNM Women's League should have asked you and me, especially me, because I would be seen as the person who would have what they say, totem feelings, to come and speak out in reference to the Prime Minister's wife, from a personal knowledge of her, to defend her name, and that for people it is, and most people, anyway, I can tell you this, even people who are not PNM respect her. So there we go.
Yeah. Well, they did ask you, if I may say so implicitly, since they just put out what they put out, and that caused us to be talking about it today. And you were able to intervene and add to what they said in terms of what was left out that should have been included. You were able to fill in those gaps today, and you did a remarkable job as usual. So I hope the Women's League today. I want to commend the Women's League once again. I'm not going to play that, The Women's League and I are one, and we stand together. So Karen, until next week, Monday, those are always difficult words to
Hasta la vista.
You met Boris Johnson. What's his name? I forget already.
Boris Johnson. You have to give him that, I like that. He think it looks good.
He's a witty guy, if you know what I mean.
He's a little wacky.
Brought up in the bourgeois class, so where they are concerned, being prime minister,
they don't have to answer to anybody.
To nobody. That is like small thing, because since she was a baby, they were controlling prime ministers. So
a matter of fact, part of wealth and part of coming from the upper classes is that they go counter to what you expect them to behave, because you know why? They know what's the right thing to do, but they don't have to do it. And you know why they don't have to do it? Because so that's why you will see them doing the things that are you would consider, how would he do something? He do it because he doesn't have to prove anything to anyone. I am Boris Johnson. Hasta la vista. He coming back to be Prime
Barack
Minister.
Obama. When he was president, he had to walk a straight line.
I don't talk about Barack Obama. I do
No, but the others who were president before behaved like Donald Trump. You think Barack
could have like him at all.
What he did? Trump?
Oh gosh, let's go. We have to go. But don't start telling me about Barack Obama, who think he's a movie star. He and his wife. I'm gone.
Karen, you know, Atelier is always missing out today, making me feel happy that you're going. Hurricane said that. Karen, I still set in the club.
Okay.
Now just
all right, take care.
Hasta la vista.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Everyone.
Okay.
And listeners, bye. See you.
Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you.
Yes, straight to the news.
Power 102 Digital.
Yeah.
We sound like home. Power 102 Digital. Streaming 24/7